All right, welcome. I'm trying to adjust the settings so that you can unmute yourselves and start video. It looks like you can start video, at least some of you. Let's see, does someone want to unmute and say something? I just want to make sure my sound is working. Can't unmute.
We can hear you, Matt.
I was able to unmute now.
Okay, yep, still figuring out the settings apparently. All right. We'll wait a couple more minutes for a few more.
I still can't unmute myself. Like,
Oh.
I don't.
Oh, that might have worked.
Okay, now I think it worked.
That worked.
Okay.
I will turn on my video once I get down to my shop. I'm just driving and I don't want to be
Okay, sounds good.
distracted.
Okay. One, two, three, four. We've got a quorum of DEC members. I would have expected a few more at this point. I don't see anyone in the waiting room.
Hey Matt, Julie does have to drop her daughter off at school, so she'll be on at 10.
Okay. All right. And then we're missing Tanley. and Jenny. And I guess that's it. Okay, well, in one more minute at 9:35, I think we'll go ahead and get started in the interest of time. Okay, well, welcome everyone to the Downtown Estacada Commission with special guests from the Chamber of Commerce. Michelle and Christina, are you expecting anyone else from your organization?
No, I don't believe so, Matt.
Don't think so?
No.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. So our previous fearless leader, Rebecca, unfortunately, I think some of you discerned through emails, had to resign her not only position as president, but her role on the board entirely. So until we get to our business meeting, I will, well, Kim, you're technically the vice chair. How do you feel about moving us through the agenda until we get down to election in our business meeting of the DEC?
Okay, sorry about that. Sure. You might have to help me along there, Matt, but all right, so call to order. Note the time, so it is 9:36. We're beginning our meeting on April 15th, 2021. Next would be public comment.
Yeah, so if there is anyone speaking in the, as a member of the public, Bruce, I think technically you are a guest in this capacity. Did you come to make public comment or just to participate?
Just to participate today, unless you have something you want me to speak to.
Okay. Yeah, so it doesn't sound like there's any public comment. I guess we'll also note on, as far as roll call goes, present from the DEC, we have Kim Bruce, we have Connie Redmond, we have Bennett Johnson, we have Taylor Gibson, Council Liaison Justin Gates, but we're missing Julie Cooper for the moment, Tan Lee, Dixon Spencer, and
Jenny.
And Jenny Bedoin, thank you. So, yeah, okay, keep us moving then.
All right, so it looks like we're welcoming new members. So we had two opening spots on the commission. And I think the council just recently appointed these two individuals. Matt, do you want to do the introductions?
Well, maybe we'll just take a brief moment to have each introduce themselves. Bennett, do you want to say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself and what interested you in the DEC?
My name is Bennett Johnson. I own a business in downtown Estacada, and I thought that it would be a good idea for me to participate from the inside rather than the outside. So that's what made me interested in joining. That's it. I own Fearless Company. I'm sure everybody knows that.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, obviously you guys have seen me so far on the meetings, so you kind of know I'm just interested in essentially helping to grow the downtown area so that it can benefit all of the retail businesses downtown, all of the food businesses, everything. And I just want to be involved, and I just want to be a helping hand wherever I can be. And I own Lennox J Boutique right across from where the Mason Jar used to be.
Excellent.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. All right, so next up would be moving into our joint session with the Chamber of Commerce. And Matt, it looks like we have context in the framing of the conversation to be presented by you.
All right, thanks. So, yeah, what I mean by the context and the framing of the conversation, I guess my sub point there, the first thing I wanted to mention is that we're not starting from scratch here. In fact, I would hope that we wouldn't start from scratch. About 5 years ago, the city, the chamber, the school district, and a number of other local organizations joined forces to go through a branding exercise. And that was the time when the current Estacada logo was adopted with the tagline, unexpected, untamed, unforgettable. And with that logo and tagline, there was a set of messaging adopted as well. And I could probably pull that up, but I think we have a pretty full schedule today. And so I'll probably skip that for now. I'm happy to distribute that via email. But by messaging, it's just a few succinct paragraphs that were meant to be used as marketing tools, especially tourism marketing. I know a number of pamphlets that have been published and on the city's website, as well as the Chamber's Visit Estacada website, that messaging has been utilized. And so today's conversation is by no means an attempt or in any way a dismissal of that work. I think we still keep that work. It's good work, it's quality work. We just want to, I think, build upon it and make sure that as we move forward as the DEC and trying to look at what we talked about last meeting, a transformation strategy, that whatever transformation strategy or strategies we're adopting are well aligned with that brand and messaging that everyone has already embraced and not in any way conflicting with it. And then we also talked about last meeting the importance of tying the chamber into this conversation, again, because tourism is one of their main focus areas on top of marketing their member businesses. But again, just not wanting to either duplicate or be in conflict or in any way create conflicting messages across organizations, but to all be pulling in the same direction. And so we wanted to include them in this conversation. So the conversation we're starting in this meeting, hopefully, is identifying sort of community-wide a unique selling position. And we're going to watch some video now that helps explain exactly what is meant by that. And then the chamber is going to do what they're going to do, hopefully in concert with DEC and other organizations. And the DEC is going to do what it's going to do, but hopefully the outcome of this meeting and probably a subsequent one is that we all sort of agree on what the selling position is, and then go about in our various ways of implementing that, either at the downtown level or at the community and tourism broader level. So that's sort of the context. I just wanted to make it really clear for the record that we're not undermining or replacing the branding effort that was done 5 years ago, but that we're seeking to just refine and build upon it and use that as a tool as we move forward in marketing in the future. So the video I want to share is a little lengthier than what we've watched in the past. It's about 45 minutes. And so I hope that you've got your morning coffee and that you're ready for some info. After we get done watching that, we'll briefly discuss a few things, and you can see those on your agenda if you have it in front of you. Maybe I'll share that real quick. Here it is. So here's our agenda. So we're going to check out this video, and then sort of wrap up this initial joint session by talking about what really differentiates the Estacada market area and makes us unique. What are our maybe 3 to 5 destination worthy activities? And he's going to talk about this in the video, and hopefully then be able to, in a sentence, describe what our unique selling position is. I think that's probably going to take up sufficient time right there, and then we might need to look at a subsequent meeting to dive in a little bit deeper about the actual planning. Who's doing what? What's the chamber doing? What's downtown doing? How do we complement one another's efforts rather than, like I said, either conflict or confuse? And hopefully in that subsequent meeting, we can come up with not some fixed strategic plan document necessarily, but a bulleted action plan for the coming fiscal year about who's doing what and when and all that kind of good stuff. So we've each got some marching orders to move forward. So without further ado then, I'm going to fire up this video. Please let me know if you can or can't hear it. And then we'll reconvene when it's done.
Is how you're going to do this. I'm going to give you right now the
We're
10-step
good?
process
Can
of
hear?
finding
All right.
your unique selling proposition. Number 1, identify your primary market area. So for this example, I picked Prince Albert in Saskatchewan. You can see it up there. Now, the primary market for Prince Albert would probably be Saskatoon. It's the biggest city in all of Saskatchewan, okay? And it is about an hour and a half drive away. So whatever the unique selling proposition for Prince Albert is, that niche, you have to remember that the people in Saskatoon could drive an hour and a half to Prince Albert, but they could also drive an hour and a half due north. They can drive an hour and a half west. They could drive an hour and a half south, which gets them almost to Moose Jaw. Or, you know, in Saskatoon, they can also go east. So now what you do is once you find your unique selling proposition, look at this big circle. You need to make sure that nobody else has it in that circle, or that yours is clearly better. And I'm going to talk more about that. So you either have to be better or different. And so when you say you got to research your market area, just remember that those people would go the same distance any other direction. So does anybody else, when you find your unique selling proposition, that one activity that sets you apart, make sure you do a circle like this. And that's it. So do they have this same thing in North Battleford, excuse me? Do they have it in Lake Lenore? Do they have it, you know, in all these other towns? Okay. And by the way, there you go. You either have to be different or you better be better. And if you say you're better, we don't care. It has to be by third-party endorsement, whether it's on social media, whether it's on publications, whether it's in websites. It's third-party saying you're better. If you say it's better, we're going to go, yeah, right, of course you'd say that, you know, and we don't believe it. And so that's the first thing I do is identify who's your major market, you know, and then you draw that circle. Now, if Prince Albert has something, they could say, well, gee, we have something that's so outstanding that we could get people to come from Alberta, from Manitoba, the provinces around us as well. And that's a bigger circle. And that would be your ultimate goal, would be to be brought in bigger, but start with that. And then remember, if it can fit anyone else in your market area, you need to toss it and start over, okay? Then number 2. And so that's your market area. Now you got to find that one activity that is significantly better, bigger, the most of, or is different. So you need to fit into one of these. By the way, if you have the most of something, it could be, we have the biggest number of antique shops in our town of anybody in our market area. So when you say we have the most miles or kilometers of trails, that doesn't work because we're probably not going to bike or hike all of them. So when I talk about the most of something, it has to be the most antique stores, the most rides. You know, if it's, we have the most number of roller coasters, you know, whatever it is, it needs to be activity related, most of. The biggest, it still needs to be interactive. The biggest roller coaster, the biggest ski hill, the biggest whatever, it needs to be an activity, not just the biggest, chest of drawers sitting out by our entrance to our town, which by the way, I saw in North Carolina. The best of, but only by third-party endorsement. You know, I got to tell you that I'm from the Seattle area, and we could go to about 10 different ski areas, but people in Seattle would often skip over to Whistler, British Columbia, because it was so much better than what they could get locally. See what I mean? So best ofs by third-party endorsement can work. You know, a thematic brand, whether you want to be a Bavarian theme, or you want to be a Dutch theme, and you know, whether you want to be Old West, whatever, if that's a thematic brand. And by the way, the activities, it can't just be architecture, the activities have to match that. It can be a lifestyle brand that differentiates you, that here are super creative, you know, and that'll draw people, probably not for tourism as much as one of the, or it can be something that's different or new. And we're going to give you a list of some of those ideas. You can be the quilting capital. You know, and by the way, if you're about river rafting, here's how you can help narrow your focus. Well, we're famous for our lazy river floats, or we have the Class 5 rapids is our specialty, or kayaking. You know, we have rapids kayaking. Look at the bottom right picture. Whoa. Ocean kayaking, lakes, rivers. You know, we might be a rafting company that has gourmet meals along our route. You can see kayaking with orcas, which is between Washington State and British Columbia. And I'll give you a good example. Being from Seattle, and we would take our team, our employees, every year to the famous boulder drop on the Clackamas River near Index, Washington. By the way, these are Class 5 rapids. There's an 80% chance you will get dumped out of your raft. 80%. And by the way, the town of Index, the population is 190 people. They're an hour's drive from Seattle. But here's the scoop. The boulders, see all the people lined up? After people get dumped out, and they have people that will throw you lines when you get dumped out of your raft so that you can grab on the line and they'll tow you back into shore. This little section of rapids lasts about 20 seconds. But you know, and so for you, you don't need to promote the river or even the fact that it's a 4-hour raft trip. You're going to promote that 30-second piece that is so outstanding that people will come from 100 miles, you know, 150 kilometers away just to do it. And so in the case of that boulder drop, I mean, that's what we did. And yeah, it was almost team building, by the way. See, you could market this. The Automobile Dealer Association had all their dealerships. They would go out there and they would have sales forces pitted against sales forces who could get through the boulders without dumping their raft over. United Way. This is a way that a company can market to corporations, and their whole deals are going to spend the day out there doing it. But the whole deal is it's the buildup to boulder drop, that one little section. And you know, if you can survive that, you're going to win. So here's a town of 190 people known for a 30-second experience and has people coming from everywhere around the Northwest going there just for that experience. So when you do this, you need to narrow your focus to river rafting and then narrow it some more to boulder drop. I mean, whether it's fishing, we're known for our trout fishing, our bass fishing. I can't tell you how many places the bass fishing capital. You know, ice fishing, noodling. See the bottom left photo? That's where a guy goes in or a girl, and they go in, they stick their arms under the roots until a catfish comes out and grabs onto their hand, and then they yank them out. How would you like that as a sport? What kind of fish it is and what kind of fishing that you're known for. Is it fly fishing? You know, or do you say, hey, if you come fly fishing, we'll even teach you how to tie flies and teach you how to do that. Or is it charter fishing? So these are what I mean by narrowing your focus. You know, we can talk about wine. There's so many wine countries. You know, we're the home of the Chardonnay or the Pinot Noir, or we're the home of, you know, whites or Zinfandels or dessert wines. Maybe you're known for tasting. And your wine tasting is pairing, or maybe it's, you know, working the vineyards. You know, see the bottom middle one? Those people are actually paying to work in a vineyard for a few hours picking grapes. You know, usually you have a hard time finding help. You can see the bottom left one, where people are actually in there helping them bottle wines. And people love it, and they'll actually pay to do it. But it makes the experience a little broader than just typical. So narrow your focus. We can go into downtowns, even need to have a focus. Are you known for your nightlife? Are you known for microbrews? Or is your downtown about kids and family? And if so, where do we put the carousel downtown? Are we known as a dining destination? Or we're known for music, or street music, you know, closet music? Are we known for shopping or cultural arts, theater, antiques, fashion, festivals? Oh, by the way, if you're gonna be known for festivals, you better have one every weekend of the year, at least 40 of them. Fitness, downtown, and you've got swings and exercise equipment right in the middle of the downtown, which they have in Canmore, Alberta. So, even downtown needs a focus. When it comes to biking, I mean, are you known for BMX or cyclocross or single track, which is kind of the single track top right photo, street biking, the right middle photo. We have family bike trails, the bottom middle photo, slick rock biking, which you'll see, in the bottom right photo, or is it extreme biking? Look at the photo just below the list there. Is it fat tire biking like you see right next to the list there? And by the way, that's a great way to do biking in the snow. So, or do you say, and you know what, if you're a great biking destination, you may say, pick your season, pick your passion. And if your passion in biking is extreme, we've got a trail for you. If your passion is biking with your family, we have a trail for you. If you can have all of these in your destination, identified by the top trail in each one of these, you could be an amazing biking destination. So the bottom line is you have to jettison the generic. And so I'm going to take you to another case history. And this is the Hiawatha Trail, which is on the border of Idaho and northern Idaho and Montana. It's a lookout pass. And what this is, it's a rails to trails. And by the way, in this area, there are hundreds and hundreds of miles of trails. So when I say most of, who cares? We're not going to probably bike all the hundreds. What I want you to do is pick the trail that is so exceptional, we'll go out of our way. And the Hiawatha Trail is one of those. The Hiawatha Trail, as a matter of fact, is 15 miles long. And by the way, it's my kind of biking. Let me go back to this one. And when I went there, I drove 6 hours to go to this place. And when I went there, there were cars and vehicles with license plates from 6 Canadian provinces and like 15 states at this one little 15-mile long trail. So I said, I want you to hang your hat on this one trail, not the hundreds of miles. Well, what makes this trail unique is the fact that it starts with a 1.7 mile, that's 3 kilometer long tunnel. As a matter of fact, you have to, it's cold in there, even in the middle of the summer, and you have to have a headlight on your helmet or on the bike because it is pitch black. But not only that, is there are 9 other tunnels, some of them a little longer, some of them, a little longer than this one that you see. And so you go through 10 different tunnels, starting with that first one. And then besides that, you go over 7 high train trestles. Now this is a rails to trail, so there's no train there anymore. Look at that. How many are going, whoa? And there's 7 of these. And I mean, people from all over the world are riding the route of the Hiawatha, taking photos along their way. I mean, this is one heck of a trail system. And so I said, hang your hat on this. And here's why it's my kind of biking. Because you can go at the top of Lookout Pass, you rent a bike, and you basically coast all the way down. That's what I call street biking. However, on the way, there are even washrooms, restrooms. And here's another reason why it's my kind of biking. When you get to the bottom, they put your bike in a bus and it takes you back up to the top. Now, isn't that cool? So instead of saying we have hundreds of miles of bike trail, they picked the one. This is like the rapids that I told you, Boulder Drop. They are home of the Hiawatha Trail. It is one of America's top-rated trail rides. It's a national attraction. And I was speaking in New Jersey, clear across the country from this place. And I told them this little case history, and these 2 gals came running by and said, Roger, that is so cool. Last year, 9 of us went from New Jersey to do the route of the Hiawatha. This year, more of us are going back to do it again. And while we're there, we're going to do some other trails around Lake Coeur d'Alene, and they started listing the other things they were going to do. That is why finding the one element, it either has to be a specific piece of trail, a river or lake, or it has to be a different kind of activity. So when it comes to this, I mean, this is in California. How many ranges do you have? There are thousands. So Ravenswood said, well, how do we differentiate ourselves? And they sat there and they sweated over and tried to came up with, you know what? No wimpy whines. They set themselves apart by using that no wimpy whine. Which means wimpy is lacking presence or strength, weakling, bland, dull. So by positioning themselves, they stood out from the crowd. Hotels are doing it. Weston is known for its heavenly beds and heavenly bedding. As a matter of fact, they sell heavenly bedding. Towels, and you name it. I mean, Holiday Inn Express is saying we have the #1 guest rated shower day. Everybody's looking for their selling proposition. This has been Canada Inn on the Central California coast. They spent millions remodeling their deal, remodeling their little resort. And you know what they did? You know what their unique selling proposition is? 1/3 of their customers used to be families. Now you can't even go there unless you're an adult. So what they did is they got rid of 1/3 of their customers and started running ads like this that you're going to see coming up here that say, no kids, be kids. So how would you like to get rid of 1/3 of your customers, make your unique selling proposition is this is adults only. And guess what? Their occupancy almost doubled, their overnight stays, I mean, their length stays, because they stood out from everybody else in the area. It worked. You need to find your unique selling proposition. This is our website. You can see what we do. Down at the bottom, it says turning everyday communities into the world's best places to live, invest in, visit. That's all we do. I get calls all the time about, people saying, "Oh, Roger, can you come and help us with traditional economic development?" I go, "No, I only work in the fun side, economic development, travel, and tourism." And so, you can see, you want to work with us, and then we offer like 10 things you do. We have free resources. By the way, I would do this. I do speaking in keynotes, but only on these subjects. We put together more than 40 videos in our library. We just kind of Netflix for communities. I wrote a book, Your Town and Destination. We do this destination development program where we walk people through branding. And so everything we do is about communities, assessments, webinars, and videos, creation of branding, marketing, product development plans. But it's all working with places. And when you have a narrow focus, it works. And even though we're tempted sometimes to get away from that, we're very fortunate that we've worked with big teams. And I absolutely love it. I spend 200 days on the road. I've become the top rated keynote speaker on the subject. And by the way, I love speaking in towns where I do big, huge conferences. But the point is for us, when you have a narrow focus, you're known for something. And there's other people that talk about branding, and there's all kinds of people that talk about by having our narrow expertise, it puts you at the top of the list. So find that one thing that sets you apart, okay? Your niche. Then number 3, look at private industries. The best brands around the world are built on private sector investment, not lakes and trails and rivers and parks and rolling hills. They're built on private business. I mean, Nashville is the country music capital of the world. You know what? The city didn't say, let's become that. It's the businesses that made that happen. Napa Valley has now become the world's wine capital. And by the way, the city and the county didn't say, let's become a wine capital. No, it started with a handful of people who invited the competitors until they had the most number of wineries. And so all private sector. I mean, Orlando, 180 attractions there. You know what? They're all privately developed. I mean, Detroit and automotive, it's all private development. Santa Fe, New Mexico, this is Native American art. And even Native American tribes or First Nations tribes in Canada, even they will have a focus. In Washington on the coast, their focus is seafood. In Santa Fe, it might be turquoise, jewelry. But everybody needs to find their niche. Hershey, Pennsylvania, it's chocolate. All of these are private. Oh, by the way, let me go back to that one. If you see now, they're about chocolate. It's Hershey, of course. But notice the street lights. They're shaped like Hershey Kisses. So here's where the city comes in and helps you embrace it. Branson, Missouri. I mean, this is a town of 10,000 people. Almost 7.5 million visitors a year. It has 49 music theaters, all privately developed. Even Jackson Hole, Wyoming, it's actually Jackson. It's the home of Western art, Western living. It's all private sector. And of course, so is Las Vegas. They don't like being called Sin City so much, although what happens there always stays there, and on Facebook, YouTube, you name it. But they really become the world's entertainment capital. And you can even say Canmore, Alberta. Now, we said, well, Canmore ought to be the mountains, one of my favorite cities in all of Canada. And, the mountain sports capital. I mean, they have doctors, they have people who live in Canada. They have more people that have summited Mount Everest living in Canmore than any other single destination in the world. And so somebody could coin a phrase like mountain sports and own it. I mean, they're right at the base of Banff National Park. Even now, for you little ones, this is Parowan, Utah. They're just getting started. They're in southern Utah, population, I think it's like 1,800. They want to work on being known for the West Best cinnamon rolls. This is their little downtown. And if you want to go to Bryan Head, which is a ski area in southern Utah, you have to drive through Parowan. They thought, how do we get people to stop? So they sat down and said, if we can get 6 to 10 places create their own cinnamon rolls, and by the way, it's really important that they vet them. That these cinnamon rolls be so good, because if we go there and the cinnamon rolls are like, I could have bought that at the store, then guess what? It's going to be very short-lived. So they need to make sure they are well vetted. But they could have different recipes, strawberries, caramel, you name it. And they could pair them with other ingredients, so good cinnamon roll and certain type of tea, coffee. They could have eat in or take out if you're on your way to Bryan Head. Grab some hot cinnamon rolls and take them with you. They should do annual, and they're working on all these annual bake-off and events. And by the way, this is still a work in progress, so you won't see it if you start looking for it. They just decided on this. And they're going to say, well, we can even do ready-to-bake, take-home cinnamon rolls that are already just bought in the oven when you get there. Or they can give you starter kits that have the ingredients for certain kinds. And all these will be sold at retailers. They can do pastry chef classes. They can even teach students there to make cinnamon rolls. So it doesn't have to be Disney, it has to be just something that you can be known for that will get us to stop or make a special trip for. And it's going to work for Pair One. And number 4, make sure it's something that will bring people back. This is really important. And this is back to museums and static things. You know, this is Ashland, Oregon, population about 20,000, home to the Oregon Shakespeare Festivals. It runs 6 days a week, 9 months of the year. There are 4 stages, 2,200 seats total, you know, and they do 11 productions a year. And by the way, they're different every year. See, so they're different. So there's reason to come back. If they ran the same ones every year, then nobody would come back. And only 4, by the way, are Shakespeare. Most of the Shakespeare ones have been modernized. So that's what they do. That's what they're known for. And guess what? They sell 90% of all the seats for all the performances. Wow. And guess what else? The average stay in Ashland is 3 nights. And by the way, overnight visitors spend 4 times more than day visitors. So sometimes it's not about how many people you get, it's how long you get them to stay. And here's the clincher, 88% return every year or every other year, 88%. It's sure a lot cheaper to go get past customers and visitors than it is to always get new ones. And that Shakespeare Festival employs 350 people full-time year-round, another 150 part-time, and their Shakespeare budget is $80 million a year. Now that is a powerful, unique selling proposition. You know, I go diving, I'm a scuba diver, and I love Cozumel, Mexico. Here's why. Because it's the drift diving capital, which means when you go on a boat, you go down underwater and the current just carries you along. This is like the mountain biking that I told you about, it's easy. And then the boat picks you up at the other end. But I go there because of Pingo. This is Pingo there holding up the lionfish right there. He has a little Operation Pingo's Dive Center. So for you, sometimes your unique selling propositions, when we're in Cozumel, but once we're in Cozumel, there's 20 different, 30 different dive operators. But we went out diving with Pingo and we became friends. He is super nice. He takes good care of his friends when he's diving. He never goes too fast. He feeds you. He takes his time. He wants to educate you, and he is always there for you. We're Facebook friends and everything. So sometimes if you are a fishing guide service, and you know what we do is we tell all of our friends, if you go to Cozumel, it's great for the drift diving, and you want to go with Pingo. And so sometimes your unique selling proposition can be you as a person. And that's how he does it. He's made so many friends. He's worked for other dive operators, and he had so many people said, we only want to dive with Pingo, that he decided, heck, I might as well go on my own. And he's done it, and he's been successful. Number 5, you got to answer the question, why? So if you're going to run ads and say, get to Amarillo by morning, tell me why. We're ready for you. Shopping, dining, nature, relaxation. Why you over everyone else? You know, visit. When you say visit or explore or discover, you better tell me why I should visit Historic Corsicana. You know, or down here, Kerrville. You know, always great times in Kerrville. Oh, really? How is that? You know, each state like, well, why should I do Kilgore to do that when I have, you know, 1,100 other communities where I could do that in Texas? You know, the refill, recharge, relax, repeat. Why? You know, so you keep going through all of these. You need to answer why. You know, look at IKEA. They don't talk about furniture. Notice, can you read it in there? Where are my new socks? It's about being organized. It's not about the what, it's the why. You know, I love this ad. Makeup can conceal them, but you can't hide them forever. Let's face your skin problems together. So instead of talking about, you know, products, they talk about solutions. You know, here, I love this for opticians, you know, Hell's Angel, you put on the glasses, all of a sudden you're a fashion designer. Or I'll let you read into that one what you will, you know, sometimes. And so what they do is they talk about the outcome, the benefit, more than just what we have, okay? And then make sure it's front and center in everything you do. So when I go to bass fishing lakes in Minnesota, and this whole list came up, I did notice that one list called Mille Lacs, which is French. And I think I've got that. Some people say it's a Mille Lac. But it came up in that very first paragraph, and it came up. So I thought, well, I'm going to dig into Mille Lac and see if they're promoting it. So I did go to the tourism website, and even though I talked about sailing, you go down in this, and you can see, okay, good. They talk about fishing in the very first paragraph. They talk about fishing, even here, they talk about the ice fishing and the snowmobiling. And did you know you could rent a fish house out on the lake? It's heated there, and you see a whole family there. And then they do talk about, you know, they have videos about it. They even have a fishing report there. And so even though they have some other things there, they did concentrate on it, and so it worked. Now, if we go back to those Texas ads, remember I singled out this one. So I thought, okay, days filled with hillside hikes and horseback rides, star-filled nights. You know, it's a little bit generic, but, you know, at least it kind of got my attention. And so I thought, okay, do they play it up? So I went to their website, and sure enough, it's right there, Cowboy Dreams. And so they thought, okay, but I'm there for the horseback riding. And so they even have a list of all these places you can horseback ride. By the way, the list goes clear off your screen there. So I went right on, that they did promote it, they did stick to it. In Red Lodge, Montana, this is a great place. Their whole thing is base camp to the Beartooths, not a gateway. And the Beartooths are the mountain range right now. And so you see, you use the logo down the bottom. And so I said, okay, are they using this? Is it pervasive? And if you go to like Airbnb, there it is, the ultimate base camp to the Beartooths, located in the foothills of, the Beartooth mountain range, and here's a custom cabin. So when people start using it, that does a great job. You go to TripAdvisor. Now here, I think, and there it is, breathe it in, St. Route to Yellowstone Park, Red Lodge, Montana, and then there's base camp to the Beartooths. So they need to promote it. They sponsor their Facebook or their TripAdvisor page so they can play it up. You go to the Chamber of Commerce site, and there it is, Red Lodge, Area Chamber of Commerce. You say, well, no, they put Area Chamber of Commerce, but down below on the left, it says base camp to the Beartooths. Now what they need to do is we'd love to see the city do it. The city doesn't even mention it. And by the way, the tourism website still says Gateway Yellowstone Park by the beautiful Beartooth. They ought to say we are the. So once they put these together, they will really own it because it's so important to have everybody singing out of the same hymnal. And that leads us to this. You'll be far more successful as a single unified voice, even locally, than having every city department or every local organization working in their own silos. And then you need to make sure your ads and your materials reflect your unique selling proposition. And by the way, stop with the clever stuff. Seize the day instead of seize the day, get it? Cedar Hill is outdoorable. Sometimes we're trying to be so clever that we can't close the sale. Clear is more compelling than clever. You know what? People want brevity. By the way, both these ads are good in the fact they have one photo. So let me do some makeovers for you, okay? So here's where we sum it up. Look. This was Abilene, Texas. Their number one attraction is the Abilene Zoo. So we have a photo of people feeding a giraffe. We have a train down on the right. We have some text under the zoo, including a phone number. Then we have text down on the left. Then we have the red thing that says feed the giraffes and ride the Safari Express. Enjoy Abilene. At least they're promoting the zoo. But what happens is when you put this on a page full of ads, it gets lost. And why is your zoo so much better? So we redid it. So we did this. Flat out amazing. Meet Zumba and Zoni, 2 of 1,000 captivating, rare, unusual, downright odd creatures you will ever see. And so cultural, you either want to cuddle with a few of them or they will have you cringing. It's a captivating experience you'll never forget. Pack your bags and make tracks to Abilene. See what I mean by doing this? Now, the white tigers. And by the way, we made this up, and I think they do have white tigers there. So before you rush out to Abilene, you want to make sure. But the point was, what would make their zoo totally different is the fact they might be one of the only places in Texas that actually has white tigers. Even when you do, what is your unique selling proposition? And so between these two ads, which would grab your attention? Remember, you're seeing them in large all by themselves. You're not seeing them on a page with other ads and a whole bunch of other stuff. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Here's another one. The cabin. This is Sonora, Texas. We have Caverns of Sonora up in the left. We have a guided tour down in the left and then text under it. And then over the right, we have another block of text. Then we have their chamber logo. And we have a boot, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 7 or 8 photos on one ad that's only half a page, and you're seeing it blown up. You know what would be way more effective? Sell that one thing. Fascinating, magical, jaw-dropping, beautiful, SonoraTexas.org. And then why? Here's the why. Internationally recognized as the most beautiful show cave on the planet. And that's in quotation marks, where 98% of the cave is still actively growing. How cool is that? Located along I-10 between Big Bend National Park and San Antonio. This is one Texas experience you must add to your resume. A fantastic place to experience. See, we didn't even bother putting their logo on it. We don't need to promote the Chamber of Commerce. All we need to do is go to SonoraTexas.org. But this one photo is going to be way more effective than looking at this, where there's just too much going on. And so that's really important. Here in Sugar Land, Texas in 2015, the one on the left, 2016, the one on the right. And of course, there's something for everyone. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we got all these different things. The company found the Sugar Bill, yeah. The Techno Chaos 500,000 Lego 3D printing. I mean, it goes on and on and on. It's way too busy and it has no single focus. So you know what they're home of? You see the ad on the left, down in the bottom in the middle is a T-Rex. And it turns out they're the home of a great attraction, the Houston Museum of Natural Science. So you know what? Get rid of those and instead do something like Sweet Tooth is waiting. When will you be here? The Houston Museum of Natural Science, only in Sugar Land. You don't need logos. And you know what? I'll bet you that will grab people's attention far more than all that other stuff. And I'm going to tell you why this is important in a minute. This is Alpena Michigan, the sanctuary of the Great Lakes. They actually made, a sanctuary as a sacred place, a place of refuge from stress, pressure, and anxiety, a community known for its wellness, health, and fitness, a rejuvenating experience up here in Michigan. This is my sanctuary, and they have a whole bunch of those. So you could identify your sanctuary. They took the Holiday Inn, changed its name to the Sanctuary Inn. Some of the trails became sanctuary trails. And they're working on limiting motorized sports in their town so they retain that sanctuary feel. North Pennsylvania, industrial art and design, America's industrial art and design capital. Even the local college is changing focus to industrial art and design. El Dorado, Arkansas's festival city. I mean, this is what it looks like. What are you doing this weekend? That's a call to action. When it comes to their activities guide versus visitors guide. And by the way, you notice something on all of these, the name of the community is at the bottom. It's never at the top. You sell the experience first, and by the way, you'll find it in El Dorado, in Canmore, in Calgary, wherever you're at. League City did a lifestyle brand. This is lunch break League City style. This is in Texas. Conference attire, League City style. It's a white shirt and tie and then shorts and flip-flops. And so that's what's so important. Use one signature photo. One. This is very Ontario, a whole lot indie and a tad bohemian. There it is, unforgettable, Uptown Barrie. And when you do ads, you need to look like this. See, one photo, and that photo should evoke emotion. Here's St. Albert in Alberta. It's the Botanical Arts City, Cultivate the Musician Youth. All revolves around the botanical arts. And so you need to evoke emotion. So let me show you a couple others. This is Daggett County, Utah. And of course, we say never market counties. Hear me, audience? Never market counties. There's very few counties that ever succeed. And I'll give you one exception. That's Madison County in Iowa. Yes, the bridges of Madison County. So Daggett County, you know what? Here it is. It's way up in northern Utah. So it's away from all their national parks. There it is. Pretty cool. So what do they want to be known for? They are known for some of the best trophy trout on the planet. Look, they did this little flyer here, flying the Flaming Gorge holds 5 Utah state records, and I mean, you can catch a trout. There's 15,000 trout per mile. They hold 6 Wyoming records. We thought, you got to evoke emotion, and so this is where they did ads like this. And if you're going to evoke emotion, we need to do something stronger than that. So this is before. See, it even evokes emotion with me. So size matters. And that's so it pulls people in. 5 Utah records, 6 in Wyoming, an average catch size of 15 inch and more than 15,000 trout per mile. No wonder the stunningly beautiful Flaming Gorge has become America's top year-round fishing destination. Straddling the borders of both Utah and Wyoming have found amazing camps and resorts, incredible boating, fun-loving guide services, mouth-watering scenery. Log on right now, look at some of our sample itineraries, book your escape, and pack your bags for a trip of a lifetime. Now, what they did here is we closed the sale, 5 Utah records, 6 in Wyoming, average catch size of 15 more than 15,000 trout per mile. No wonder it's become America's top year-round fishing destination. And then we said, while you're here, guess what else we have? So we start first with close the sale, why it's the #1 place to go. And then we said the location, straddling the borders of both Utah and Wyoming. And then while you're here, guess what else we have? That is how you need to do it. So you might do ads that look like this. See what I mean? And then they can do this. They can do this to sell the whole thing. And by the way, even in this text, they're still promoting the fishing. But can you imagine doing posters and ads like this? 5 Utah, 6 in Wyoming. So #1, not only is it #1, it's the #1 most scenic trout destination. So imagine doing campaigns along this line. How fun can that be? And so even though fishing is your base, you're saying, guess what else we have for you? Okay? So that's how you can do it. Here's another one. We were doing a lot of work in Utah. And once again, Kidd Market County. They're home to the Bear River Refuge, which is the West's best birding experience. But here's the problem. Birding caters to about 4% of the population. It's a little bit old. You don't find many millennial birders out there. So we thought, is there a way we can leverage it to still have a narrow focus and have a bigger audience? And we did it on photography. Did you know that single lens reflex cameras are outselling any other kind of camera other than our phones that have cameras in them? By far, the days of the little Canon point and shoots and all of those are pretty much over. They're selling more of these today than ever before in history. So we thought, well, why don't we make it photography in this incredible setting? You could get colleges, universities, high schools, photographers, anybody that has new equipment. So this is a way to take birding to another level and be a photography destination. So in we put it doesn't matter whether you're using a phone, a point and shoot camera, the best gear on the planet. You'll be hard pressed to find a better location in the lower 48 to photograph some of the most amazing living art on Earth. And then we talk about 74,000 acre Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge, located just east of Brigham City. and you go from there. So we did a series of these concepts for them. So you see what the subject matter is, and then redefining living art. And one of the challenges we had is that Bear River Refuge is one area of that, but they have another place that's like a 2.5-hour drive away that they're trying to market. Well, how do they tie this to that? So what they did is, this is the whole focus, is photography and birding, okay? And so this is what they did. But see the top photo on the right? Those are called the sun tunnels. They're 2.5 hours away, and they're trying to promote those. They're out in the middle of nowhere. And so I thought, well, how do we bring that into focus, so to speak? Get it? And so, and then what kind of business opportunities can we create? Can we have people that take people out on airboats through the refuge? Can we get people to see the bottom left photo? Can we get people there to do Segway tours so it's nice and quiet, don't disturb the birds? And then going out to those sun tunnels, it's still the same message. It's about photography. Photographs like that and photographs like that. And that is how you do it. Americana, this is the other one I will do here. And this one here is a little bit different. And some of you are in charge of multiple areas. You say, well, how do we bring these all together? So in this case, here it is. It is an umbrella brand, which means we're promoting multiple things. So in their case, they have 4 neat things. One is Green River, which is like 2 hours away from other parts of the county. This is one of the few places where you can ride, you can rent, and you can repeat. You've got both the slick rock and the biking and the river for stand-up paddle boarding or rafting. And so it's the combination of those 2 things that you can't get in both places. Plus they're on Interstate 70, so they have a great visitor information center. And if you want to know how to find any of these places, stop in at our visitor information center. And once they do that, they will show you where these are, and they will show you what they've got right there. So number 1 was the mixture of the river and the slick rock in one location. Number 2 was a place called Goblin Valley. It's a state park. No place like it on earth. I mean, this is number 1 on their list. We just borrowed this from 20th Century Fox when The Martian came out. But look at this. I mean, it's just amazing. And then for social media, we thought, could you do a campaign where people say, what's your story? Where they would say, I was running with the goblins, and you can tell your own story. For instance, this is the photo we just found on just searching for photos. We turned this into a story. That when we pitched the tent, went to sleep, and during the night we were surrounded by goblins. What's your story? And then you would tell one of the Earth's most out of the world sites can only be found in one place on Earth. And so that's a way to promote Goblin Valley. And then number 3 on their list is Joe's Valley, some of the best bouldering in the Western United States. Don't limit your challenge your limits. So here it is promoting Joe's Valley. And so they did a series of these. If you only live once, but you do it right once is enough. And so they have multiple brands in different locations. And then number 4 is a place called the Wedge Overlook. And we call it another Grand Canyon. I mean, this place is, you can only get there on unpaved roads, but it is absolutely, my wife did, absolutely phenomenal. So they are home of the San Rafael Swell, and I'll show you that in a second. And they're promoting 4 amazing experiences: Goblin Valley, another Grand Canyon, Joe's Valley, and the Green River, the best of both worlds. And this is the San Rafael Swell. See that big upheaval? I mean, it is massive. And so overall, they could say pavement is so overrated. Where it ends, adrenaline begins. And so to promote that county, under the umbrella brand, they use pavement is so overrated, and they put Goblin Valley, Wedge Overlook, the Green River Floats, Joe's Valley Bouldering, and a couple other ones. And they put the towns on the bottom right. See them all there? It's the San Rafael Swell. And so by doing that, start the superlatives. And once again, they're promoting the same experience. And look at, they didn't bother putting a logo on it. They put, where exactly is this? And then that'll draw them into the text to close the sale. When you do this, and get everybody singing out and saying, you will go from this, the typical economic development express, which really isn't really moving, and you will go from this to this, because now you are a unified voice that will win.
Okay.
And there you go. You'll be far more effective as one.
Did anybody else have trouble with the audio on that? Yeah, I don't know what was causing it. I tried to adjust my mic, but he was cutting in and out, and I had to sort of fill in the blank spaces.
Oh, I wish someone would have said something. Was it still intelligible or a complete disaster?
No, it was, again, you could use your imagination and fill in the gaps, but you got the gist of the presentation.
Okay, well, shoot. I guess yet another reason to try and get back to in-person meetings. At any rate,
I didn't know if I could speak during the presentation. I didn't know if you'd hear that.
oh, I think we would.
Well, and it doesn't look, there's no, I couldn't find any message function on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the chat feature, I think it's off, and I don't know how to turn it back on. I don't see an ability to turn it on.
Okay.
I apologize for that if you were all enduring and frustrated the entire time. How much of it was audible? 50%, 70%?
Of 50%. It was just cutting in and out, it would be random and continuous.
Okay.
Like every 10 seconds, there would be a 5 to 7 second gap in what he was saying.
Well, darn it, I apologize for that. Let me try and sum up what I take from it, and let's have a discussion. I sincere apologies. I didn't realize it wasn't working.
Then a whole bunch of little voices. And when you do your ads, one signature.
Yeah.
Okay, get rid of it.
Yeah, I don't want to, I mean, I feel like it was cutting in and out, but I could still hear it. You just had to listen very closely.
Okay. So it's kind of going quiet and then louder.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that happen when I speak, or is it just the video?
It was just
The video.
Interesting. Okay. Well, here's what I think I'd take away from it myself. I'd like to hear what you take away from it, and then let's have a discussion and maybe schedule a meeting where we can have a more robust discussion with the Chamber of Commerce. These basically follow his main points. He said, identify what your market area is. So what is the specific area we are trying to market? Obviously for downtown, we're trying to market downtown, but as he pointed out there, your downtown itself may not be the destination. In some cases it might be, but in our situation, I think if we're being honest, it probably isn't yet. But there are other things that are destination worthy, and then how do we sell the downtown to make sure that people come there when they are there for the main attraction? So what is our market area? What are the things that are better, different, most of? And if we're going to claim that it's better, he says that probably ought to be by third-party endorsement. We can say that it's better than anyone else, but do other people also agree with that? And can we pull those endorsements in? Either in the form of, Google reviews or expert reviews or whatever. He said, narrow your focus and then narrow it some more. I thought that was another key point. He has entire videos dedicated to this next one, but he says jettison the generic. When you say eat, play, and dine, or dine, play, and shop, well, there's a billion places you can do that. So what is not generic that we can market? We can certainly eat, play, and shop in Estacada, but is that sufficiently compelling to bring someone to the area, or even residents for that matter? He mentioned answering the why. I don't think there's anything wrong with our visit Estacada, but he's saying we have to do a better job of telling people why to visit Estacada. Or you also used escape to Estacada. I think that's good too, but can we do a better job of answering why people want to escape to Estacada? Sell the experience first, he said, and then tell them what else is here while you're here. And that, I think, goes back to what we were just talking about. Make sure your marketing evokes emotion. Don't sell a location, sell an experience. And then this is getting a little bit more into the technical weeds, but he seems pretty convinced that your marketing ought to highlight one photo. Maybe there would be some smaller photos on there as well, but really one point of focus. Those were some of the things that I took away from it. Feel free to unmute yourself, chime in, tell me what you what stood out to you, and then maybe we can jump into what we feel like are our differentiating selling points.
Hey, Matt. I feel like the biggest takeaway is that we really need to hone in on what we offer here. And I think like one of the biggest things is that we have all of these hiking trails and outdoor activities that we could be doing. And we have almost nothing that offers, like no retail space, no nothing that offers anything for those people doing that. So like we have the Clackamas River, which is great, and they offer all kinds of water stuff, but nothing for hiking, nothing for disc golf or anything like that. And we could have something great here offering that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think they do have some disc golf stuff, but your point is still relevant.
Yeah, and even to add on to that, cycling, right? We've talked about that before, like a bike shop kind of situation, you know, where people could do that kind of thing. So I think those are relevant economic points.
Yeah, and so to my DEC people, this is kind of where we start to talk about how our marketing and transformation strategy ties into our committee level work. You know, instead of thinking about generally what businesses are needed, we target specifically those businesses that complement the selling position we're trying to promote. In this case, Taylor saying we need more outdoor equipment stores. Okay, anything else anyone wants to contribute that stood out or thoughts that they had?
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. One comment he made was to be make it clear, not clever. I think sometimes we get so tied up with posters and having all this stuff when we need to be really clear on what our message is and really pull that out rather than try and be clever with phrases.
I think that's a great point, Connie. And I would just add that from a marketing perspective, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Donald Miller's work around story branding, but he talks about that you need to be very clear in your messaging because our reptilian brain has about 3 seconds of an attention span to decide if we're going to give any bandwidth to what it is that we're looking at before we're like, I'm out. So there's a lot of stuff around that. And I also really liked what he said about, you know, selling the experience and then also about the imagery, Matt. I think that can be super compelling. I think he showed some great examples of that. I think we've all seen great examples of that, where you see a picture of a destination and you're like, I want to go there. Got to go look that up right now on Google and figure out how to get to that spot. So I think compelling imagery is something that we have not leveraged well and could really be a big part of this plan.
Yeah.
The one thing that caught my attention was what he said about the Shakespearean Festival, in that people spend 4 times as much money when they stay overnight. And Estacada does not have good overnight accommodations that would attract people to come and stay here overnight, other than camping. But we lack that kind of room space for people to stay.
Okay. Yeah, so that may go back to our economic vitality work and either trying to work with the Red Fox or think about how we might add to the lodging offerings.
I thought it was interesting also, like when he was looking at the map and looking at, you know, what other cities are equal distance from a major metropolitan area. And so if we look at Portland and kind of look at what other little small towns or rural areas are equal distance from Portland and like how we contrast with those areas, what we have to offer different from those.
Yeah, that hit me as well. You know, how are we different from not only other Clackamas County small towns, but even like Banks or Vernonia or McMinnville or Newburgh, you know, Scappoose. Yeah, I think that helps frame our thinking in our discussion about differentiation as well. So maybe that's a good segue. Does anyone else want to chime in with anything before we,
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Sorry, Julie is ringing up a customer and she wanted me to hop on and say something. So she was saying that she feels like it's really important that we try to work with the Art Commission or the Art Back to kind of, you know, put ourselves on the map as a really cool place that you can visit for cool art and things like that. And they have great ideas that we could work with them on.
Okay. So let's jump then to my question: what differentiates the Estacada market area? With Jenny's point in mind about, you know, similar sized competitor cities, and I think maybe we could start the list by saying art and murals is one thing that maybe we have that many or most or all don't.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I would say number two for me that I don't think we leverage well is the world-class disc golf that we have at the Timber Park and at McIver. You know, we know that those places have huge events that draw huge amounts of people. And I don't think we've done a good job at leveraging that piece.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Other ideas?
I'm going to say the super obvious one, and I think we've already tried to leverage this one, but is obviously the Clackamas River. Think of all the other areas that are within that Portland range, and nobody has quite the body of water that we have to work with.
Yeah, and I would even say specifically Estacada Lake. We know that particularly in this last year during COVID, we just saw an explosion of activity on the lake because it was a COVID-friendly event and there were, you know, so.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think the river, yes, is the obvious one, but if we take his advice and say narrow and then narrow some more, yeah, maybe we do end up on Estacada Lake and then perhaps the Whitewater upriver. Certainly Oregon has other whitewater, but is there other whitewater as good as the upper Clackamas as close to Portland? I don't think so, but I'm not a whitewater enthusiast.
Because the other one would be river floating, which is tough because I feel like most people put in before they get to Estacada, like obviously like the Barton to Carver. I know some people float from like MacIver to Barton. And I guess I don't know enough about our river to know if there were opportunities with like promoting that river float thing, because I know that's a very popular activity. But yeah.
Well, I think that's actually a really relevant comment, because the county is, every year, it's just a disaster trying to manage people and vehicles, Barton to Carver. And so the county would be very interested in partnering, I think, in trying to get people to do MacIver to Barton.
Yeah.
In order to relieve Barton to Carver. And you know, we're self-interested in that because it might get more people to come further down 224 or up 224.
Well, the problem with that though is like most likely they're going to go Springwater and miss our town completely.
Yeah.
Well, Jenny, I put you in charge of like putting roadblocks up on Springwater and yeah, that is true. We'll have to think through that one, won't we?
I would just offer kind of big picturing that, you know, that maybe one day there is a bridge, right, from MacIver to Estacada. And if that happened, you know, we might say, you know, park in the city lot in downtown and, you know, walk across the bridge and put in the river, you know, like there might be some kind of opportunity there. I don't know. Because then they could stop and get snacks and whatever else that they needed for their rafting trip.
So there again, maybe a problem becomes an opportunity. Jenny's saying, well, maybe they use spring water and completely bypass Estacada, but if there were a business that started up that focused on shuttling people
Yeah.
from downtown Estacada to the put-in spot, you know, I'm just spitballing here, but that.
Yeah.
And it parks out and it picks up in front of Harmony. So you can jump in and grab a few things before you
Right.
Subway, liquor store, Harmony. It's like, it's a little, you know, taco stand, you said.
I think another element of one thing we could kind of capitalize on for our town is just we have a lot of makers, producers of things. I don't know if every small town has a brewery and a cidery and a bakery and a lot of farms. So I think that that's another thing that, again, with the pandemic and people trying to turn more local and small and homesteading, I think that's something that we can highlight as well. There's a lot of production of things here, not just retail of things.
Yeah, I like that.
Christina, do you remember when we chatted about the farm tour idea? We were down at the Lavender Farm, which is no longer really doing public stuff. They're doing more wholesale now. And maybe you want to speak to this.
Well, it sort of followed Mount Hood Territory's tap trail and pivoting that and making it more of a, like Jenny said, a production, a farm tour trail that people can go to, the breweries and the cidery and, the marketplaces, not only Wade Creek, but Hillock Burn and Peacock Ridge, and make it more of a day trip destination, because what Bruce said is we're really not a come and stay for the entire weekend unless you're camping. But we can appeal to the greater region to say, road trip it out to Estacada, get in the river, experiencing these small businesses, because as Jenny said, it's very trendy and it's very safe and healthy during these weird COVID times.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that Christina and I talked about too was like, that's another business, right? Like, come out, you pay me $99, get on the shuttle, I'll take you around to these, 3 or 4 locations. Maybe it's a mini booze tour or whatever, you go to like the breweries and the cideries and whatever, or maybe it's a mini makers tour and you go to Hillock Burn Farm and Peacock Ridge and Wade Creek and somewhere else that's making soap or wherever, and the art gallery, you pop into these spots. I think that's an economic opportunity for somebody to do a business out of that.
Yeah, at a minimum, we could at least do a better job of selling an itinerary, and instead of just throwing 99 things at them. Here's your day. It's already planned for you.
I like that.
So I've got art and murals, disc golf, the river, but more specifically the lake, whitewater, and the float, potentially trying to get people further toward Estacada, McIver to Carver, or to Barton, McIver to Barton. And then, then the makers, farms, brewery, cidery, bakery, jeweler.
I have a particular focus, and that's on biking. And I think it is an untapped resource, but the problem is the infrastructure is not there yet, and we're sort of dependent and reliant on other agencies to construct and complete the Cazadero Trail, which would come from Boring into Estacada, following the old PGE Railroad right away. But it would be, if we can get that, some impetus behind that project, I think we'd see a big boost in bicycle tourism. And it's a big financial incentive, or not incentive, but what's the word? I can't think of it right now, but it would, I don't know if anybody's been in Gresham on a weekend at Jazzy Bagel. Similar to Harmony Bakery, I guess. On a weekend, you'll see anywhere from 100 to 200 bicycles sitting outside there from people who come up the Springwater Trail. And I think if we can get that and some force behind the development of the Cazadero Trail, we'd see a big boost in people coming into Estacada. And plus, I saw that he talked about off trail or trail riding on bicycles too. There's a lot of opportunities to develop trails in and around the Estacada area for bicycles. And so I'm doing what I can to get things going, but we're dependent on Oregon State Parks, and I think Metro is another stakeholder in that project. But I'd like to get more people behind that to give it more force to those people who are developing these projects.
I like that. It sounds like, to me, I mean, I know that we've got the Cascading Rivers Scenic Bikeway, and perhaps that's another asset we add to this list. But as far as the Cazadero Trail goes, that's probably
Years away.
Work we're doing now for marketing in the future once the asset is in place.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, but it's an important point nonetheless. Okay, I'm looking at the time, and so I'm probably going to table the next question, which is just in a sentence, what is Estacada's unique selling position? And then let's maybe just look at right now a follow-up meeting with the chamber to start doing some action planning. What typically works for you? I hate to go another month and just do this at our next DEC meeting. If we looked towards the end of April,
End of April's looking pretty good for me.
29th, perhaps.
Yeah, that I am wide open right now on the 29th. I don't know about
Okay.
anybody else.
I'm wide open the 29th as well.
Same here.
And time-wise, morning, afternoon, early morning, mid-morning.
I would love afternoon.
Okay. Bennett, yeah, comment.
So I had planned on not saying anything during this meeting, just kind of getting my feet wet a little bit, but I think that it's really important that when we're talking about any initiative that we consider what it is that we want to achieve. And so what we're talking about is, all kinds of different things that Estacada has to offer. But I think that that is secondary to what is it that we want to achieve in tourism or economic development or any of those things. So the first thing I did was I asked Matt, can I see your strategic plan? Apparently there isn't one. That's something that that I want to throw on the table, is that just a little history. Years ago, the city council appointed a tourism committee for a tourism commission for Estacada. And that tourism was, basically they said increase tourism in Estacada, which is a pretty broad band approach to things. And so that committee eventually morphed into other things, I think, the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce put together a strategic plan. Tourism was part of that. So I think in the absence of a committee that is specifically dedicated to tourism, it may be a helpful exercise with a really good product in the end for the Chamber of Commerce and for this committee or this commission to develop a comprehensive tourism strategic plan or business plan, and that would have goals that would then direct our activities toward the achieving of those goals. Because in the absence of a plan and goals, what you end up doing is just having conversations and throwing stuff against the wall, and maybe adopting a few activities that we're going to do, but that it doesn't fall into a total and complete comprehensive plan. You're just doing activities with the hope that those activities will increase tourism. We don't even really know what kind of tourism we want to increase or how much tourism. There are towns Just as a short example, if you go to Waikiki, then that island tries to attract a certain kind of tourism. And if you go to the Hawaiian island of Molokai, which is where I like to spend my Januaries, they have a whole different idea about how tourism should interface with their community. And so we should have some of those foundational discussions and decide what it is that we want to achieve. And the city council should probably endorse those goals. Okay, so there I am.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if anyone here disagreed. I think the conversations we're having now are kind of the early conversations, and hopefully they lead to something like what you're talking about. I like the direction that you're giving us, though, in suggesting that we need to begin with what the desired outcome is, and I think that's a really helpful starting point probably to this action plan conversation. So what type?
I'm a Stephen Covey disciple, and one of his very first things is to say, begin with the end in mind. So we can have dozens of discussions, but until we actually have defined what that end object or achievement is that we're trying to do, then these discussions are actually more isolated than they are addressing a comprehensive strategic plan.
Yeah, so I perhaps at our next meeting, we begin with that question of what specifically are we trying to achieve? What type of tourism are we trying to see? And what's the outcome?
I would suggest what we do is start with creating a vision. So in 5 or 10 years, if we were successful as a committee or a joint committee, what would it look like? What would tourism look like in the Estacada area? What would we have achieved? And create that vision. And then that serves as the foundation for how you develop budget, goals, all the rest of that.
I might say too that Bennett did this work with the chamber, and I also want to offer that, to Matt's point, like we don't need to hire a consultant and do a big fancy, thick. What Bennett did for the chamber, and I think we could maybe duplicate this for this purpose. It's like a 1 to 2 page document that's like chunk. Like here's the vision, here's the goals. There's a SWOT analysis in there, which is always helpful, right? To just kind of get a visual. And then it has kind of like, okay, in 10 years, this is what it looks like. And it's more like a narrative, like we see this happening and we see this happening. And I think that is a good idea from the sense that it just gives everybody like, oh, here's what we're shooting for, and then like she said, you can kind of develop your action steps from there. So I'd be happy to bring that document along to the next meeting and share it out. I mean, I could even share it out now so people could have a look at like just the structure of it, because I do think it's a really good like kind of boilerplate template for just like let's just put everything we're doing here in this box. And it's not long and drawn out. I don't think it would take us very long to do. Because I know that's one of my concerns is that you get kind of lost in like all of the planning. And I'm more of a doer, but I do agree that there should be some structure. So thanks for chiming in on that.
It doesn't take a long time. I actually do it as a profession, and I have a very succinct process that we can use if you chose to for strategic planning. It takes about a day and then some drafting and going back and forth a little bit, but not a day like an 8-hour day, but a few hours to get the vision established and then decide on goals. There's a process that's very successful in kind of getting people's ideas on paper. And what I would say is that once you get that plan in place and somebody, comes in the rooms and says, hey, you know what, I really think that goldfish tourism is the direction that we want to go in. And you're like, wait a second, let's go back to our plan. So I don't see goldfish tourism in here, but let's take a look at it and see whether or not it meets some of the criteria that we've already outlined in our strategic plan. that the document, and I strongly, Michelle, I'm glad you said this. I strongly believe that 100-page strategic plans get left on the shelf and 3-page strategic plans get used over and over again. But you know, you use those documents in order to evaluate whether or not things are potentially good ideas to add, or whether or not they're things that, you know, we'd be wasting our time and very precious and scarce resources, dedicating or stretching our resources beyond what we actually have.
So let's go back to calendaring. The 29th sounds like it's workable for many. There was a preference expressed for afternoon, and that's also fine with me. Does anyone have a strong objection to afternoon? Okay. Let's maybe look at like a 1:30 on the 29th. Everyone has time to eat some lunch and then fall asleep in a meeting. 29th, April 29th, 1:30 p.m. And yeah, let's maybe, the invitation I'll send out will maybe take us through 4:30. I cringe at 3-hour meetings, but if we can get a lot accomplished during that block, Bennett, I'll probably contact you in the interim to help maybe structure that meeting, if that's okay.
Sure, but I mean, I think we need to hear from the participants here whether or not that's something that we're interested in doing. We don't want to shove anybody into a process that doesn't seem meaningful.
Sure. Well, no, and I appreciate that. I guess I'm operating under the assumption that people are in because this is the direction we've been going for the past few months already, in having foundational conversations leading up to this visioning and planning process. So I think the only modification that you're really adding is just suggesting a format and perhaps a specific process that we hadn't quite narrowed in on yet. Does anyone disagree with that? Never want to speak for others.
No, I think we've talked about that before, of having some way of like assessing the current, you know, tourism and what things we have to offer, and then having a way of measuring like progress from action steps that we take. So, but we haven't had like a concrete discussion about how to assess and how to measure progress, but it has come up. So I think it's great that, yes, we should have a actual concrete plan for doing those things.
Yeah, and I think, so we're getting, with this conversation, we're slightly outside of our lane for Downtown Estacada Commission, but that's okay because tourism and Downtown Estacada are connected at the hip. But what I think probably needs to happen is that this planning or visioning document that's created, hopefully at our next meeting or as an outcome of our next meeting, it then acts as a guiding sort of a North Star for both the chamber and downtown, so that we're pulling in the same direction. Because downtown, even after our next planning meeting, downtown is still going to need to have its own separate meeting to look at how does that vision document apply to us and our specific goal setting for downtown. And then how do we measure against those goals to see if we're meeting them? So yes, I agree. Okay. So yes, planning, but hopefully we can get a lot of it knocked out and then really start doing the work. Okay, so April 29th, 1:30 p.m. to about 4:30 p.m. I will send out all of the invitation, and Bennett and I will work in the background maybe to get that meeting sort of structured and set up. And with that, I guess we will dismiss Michelle, and Christina, and thank you for your contributions.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Looking forward to our next conversation, you guys. See you later.
Take care. Fearless leader Kim, do you want to like zoom us through the rest of this agenda?
Yeah, all right, let's do it. So it looks like we have nominations and elections for chair and vice chair. Obviously, Rebecca, as the chair who is no longer with us, we're having to fill that position. So I don't know how to formally go about doing these election or nomination and election, Matt, but.
Yes. The ordinance that establishes this commission says that we basically make up our own rules. And those have not been formally put together just yet. City commissions operate by Robert's Rules of Order for meetings, but we follow those pretty darn loosely. But as far as this election process goes, I think the easiest thing to do is probably just ask for nominations and then just make those elections. In a previous meeting, we determined as a group that other officer positions were sort of unnecessary since we have a full-time staff support person, myself, that really we just needed that leadership in order to run meetings and keep the organization moving forward, to make sure that the staff person doesn't get out of line.
Great, so
Connie's got her hand raised.
I'd like to nominate Kim as chair.
All right.
I was just
I
gonna
second that.
I was gonna nominate Kim as chair and Taylor as vice chair.
Yes.
great. Any other nominations?
I can second that.
So you could just say we have a motion to appoint Kim as chair, Commissioner Bruce as chair, and Commissioner Gibson as vice chair, and then call for a vote.
Okay, so I say that again, or?
You can just keep it simple, whatever.
You can just say as stated by Matt.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, as stated by Matt, do we have a thumbs up? Yes.
All in
Yes.
favor?
All in favor.
All in favor. Okay.
Any opposed? All right, and I want to make sure we still have yes, we do have a quorum, so we're good. Okay, that will be noted in the minutes. I'll let you keep it rolling then, Chair Bruce.
All right. So the next would be review of the adoption of the minutes from last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review those and any amendments to those minutes?
So here they are on screen.
If no changes or amendments, I make a motion that we adopt the minutes as written.
Second that motion.
Right, motion approved.
Aye.
Yeah, just a technicality. You'd say, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. That.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Aye.
So, yeah. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right.
Okay, motion passes to approve the minutes. Let me take that down.
Okay. I'll have to get the script for next meeting.
Oh, you're doing just fine.
All right, so the promotion committee report. So we've met one time so far. I think Connie was on the call. Courtney O'Brien was on the call. Can't remember who else was on there, but the primary discussion was talking about the 4th of July parade. Connie, do you want just a quick update on the 4th of July parade?
Yeah, sure. I think Julie, you were also on the part of that
Yep.
meeting. I'm not sure. We're real close to coming up with a theme right now. The leader is dancing in the streets, which I think is really good. We have a promotions meeting next week and we'll confirm that. I've got my stagers lined up. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Eric. just moving right along.
Great. So if anybody, current thing right now is figuring out the theme for the parade. So as Connie said, right now it's dancing in the streets, but if anybody else has an idea that pops in their head that they feel strongly about, please throw it out through email or right now.
Yeah.
I
we'll
have
be
a question
making
about-
decision next Wednesday.
I just had a question about
Go ahead.
timing. I remember at one point you guys mentioned that you were gonna start things later than you have in the past. Is that still the plan?
Right. Yes, it is. And
Okay.
it's going to be kind of interesting because we'll start the parade at 1. And then it's my understanding that Parks and Rec is going to have music in the park starting at 4. So by having it start at 1, we should be done by 3, and then people can just kind of wander around downtown and then head over to the park for a concert in the park.
I love that. I think that's so much better than having a gap of time in between events.
Well, especially I don't think the Timber Festival is happening, so there's really no place for people to go between. So.
Good point.
So the Design and Economic Vitality Committee met for the first time yesterday. Matt, in lieu of time, I don't know if there's much of a report on that.
Yeah, I guess we'll just say that we looked at a list of potential projects for the year and winnowed it down to about 6 or so, but with the caveat that we knew that those 6 projects or initiatives may be modified based on this visioning and planning process. So it's a little bit awkward that these planning projects are taking place simultaneously, but if for some reason these projects and initiatives that Design and Economic Vitality is wanting to focus on are poorly aligned with the vision and the action plan document that we come up with at the end of the month, then those will be revisited. But we at least started the process of talking about what people would like to focus energy on. I guess that's probably a sufficient report.
I do.
Oops, sorry, Jenny.
Oh, sorry. I have an update. One of the questions we had yesterday at the meeting was about the plan for art back and murals. And I did get some information about that. The plan this summer is Dollar General. And then 2022 is to rehabilitate the mural on Harmony. And then they're not sure about the next summer after that. And so it's not clear if there's a plan for Les Schwab or not. And they do need to have discussion with the new owners about that.
Perfect. Thank you for the update.
Thanks, Jenny. And then the review and approval of the proposed budget. Matt, can you please explain?
Yeah, so as Bennett mentioned, in an ideal world, we'd have goals and a vision and a plan to inform the budgeting process. But we're in this awkward position of needing to make a budget recommendation to City Council because they're in the throes of the budget process now. And it will be adopted in May and then effective July 1st. And so what I've done is basically just put together a very basic document based on just the events that we are pretty sure are going to happen, with some dollar amounts associated with them that are comparable but slightly higher than years past. And they're dollar amounts that I feel are reasonable and I think would allow us to do quality events for the ones that we're focused on. So the ordinance of the DEC requires us to put on the 4th of July parade. It requires us to put on one other public event free to the public downtown. And then I believe at least one other. and it doesn't make a requirement on whether it's free to the public or not. Uncorked this year, we decided needed to be still suspended, knowing that the COVID regulations are just so fluid right now. But because of the way the fiscal year runs, July 1st to June 30th, Uncorked 2022 would actually need to be in this budget that's being adopted now, since it's typically in the month of June. So $15,000 in income and expenses to make it sort of a break-even event is similar to years past. It's been profitable in years past, but we'll just consider that a win if we're able to keep expenses below income, but we'll definitely have to stay in the black. We've talked about a possible downhill derby event in the fall, and I just put /fall event because that decision hasn't been made yet, but knowing that that's going to be a potentially more expensive event similar to Uncorked, I put in a similar dollar amount there. I believe there's a lot of potential to make some money on that event, and so I did reflect that in the income. The Christmas tree lighting is a low budget event, but I did plug in some money there. Spring event, we haven't identified yet. We don't know what that might be or if we're going to do it, but you know, with budgeting, you got to get it in there or else you're not going to have access to the money if you need it. And then there usually happens to be some miscellaneous expenses that come up throughout the year, whether that's signage and banners, marketing materials, print materials, digital advertising on Facebook and whatnot. And so I plugged in some money there. On the bottom, you see it all breaks even. And this is a projection. The main thing as far as the city budget is concerned is just that you can't spend more than you've asked for. And so as long as we follow that rule, the dollars between these different line items are pretty fluid and can move around. The main thing, again, is just that we wouldn't be able to spend more than the $40,000 we're asking for, no matter what.
Okay.
So we need to recommend this for the council's, well, first the budget committee's approval and then ultimately the city council. If anyone wants to comment or modify this in some way, now would be the time to make those comments. Okay, Kim, do you want to ask for a motion then?
So do we have a motion to, or does somebody want to approve that?
Yeah, make a motion to approve the proposed budget.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to approve the proposed budget.
I second.
Okay, I saw Connie and Bennett. Anyone want to? We'll go with Connie, I guess. She's at the top of my screen. So then just those in favor?
Okay, so those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, I see thumbs up and ayes. Any opposed?
Oh.
All
All right, motion, yeah, approved.
Yeah.
All right. So it looks like next meeting is going to be May 20th at 9:30.
May 9th.
Sticking to that third Thursday of every month. Actually, I take that back. No, our next meeting is really April 29th, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I guess our next official DEC only meeting will be our third Thursday, May 20th. As far as time goes, I've gotten a few indications from a few people that 9:30 isn't like the perfect time. Is there some flexibility there? Could we go to either later in the morning or again, maybe afternoon? What would work for you all?
Anytime after 10 a.m. is wonderful. And if not, I just have a daughter in school and I can just jump on the calls late. You know, if you guys don't mind, which has been happening.
Is 10:30 okay with folks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
10:30,
Or
good.
Taylor was saying afternoons are best, or for her, or Taylor, is that every afternoon is best for you or just on the 29th?
So obviously I always have kids in tow, but afternoons, my son does like a rest time. My daughter does a nap, and then my littlest is usually asleep. So I'm just able to be like 100% here. But if mornings are good, I'll just have them in tow.
Bennett, I see clapping hands. Was that for 10:30 or for afternoon?
Oh, sorry. I thought it was raise hand. Oh, sorry. There you go. Wrong hand.
That's okay.
I have a meeting that starts at noon on every Thursday.
Okay.
Every Thursday. Okay.
And at what time does that wrap up usually?
1 o'clock.
Okay.
So if I were to propose like, because I'm in the same camp as Taylor with childcare, would 1:30 every third Thursday work for folks? 1:30 p.m.
Connie, is that okay for you? Okay, I'm seeing nodding heads. Let's do 1:30.
Okay.
May 20th,
Thank you.
1:30.
All right, with that, before we close, are there any additional comments that people want to add? Take that as
Great job, Kim.
moving it through helter skelter here. And any public comment?
Bruce?
No, I'm good, unless you have something you think I need to share.
I don't think so.
Okay,
This is great. Thanks for being here, Bruce.
you're welcome.
All right, and with that, I think this meeting is adjourned. I feel like I need my gavel.
Yes. Thank you so much, everyone.
Great. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you on the
I'll call.
29th.
29th.
Thank you.